welcome to my channel or welcome back to my channel. My name is Andy, sometimes Mouse, and I talk about books and book-related things, and today I am going to be talking about my childhood rereads in which I read all of the Tamora Pierce books. 99% of the Tamora Pierce books. I read the Tamora Pierce books when I was around 11 or 12. I thought they were middle grade books. They are apparently young adult books, which now that I'm having reread them, that makes a little bit more sense. I was obsessed with them, and I can distinctly remember the reason that I was obsessed with the Tamora Pierce books was because Tamora Pierce wrote about girls getting their periods in fantasy realms. When do you hear about that? Never. Never. You never hear about their cycle, right? And I thought that was really cool. And even on my reread, I thought that was really cool. Some of the reviews for these books will definitely class them as feminist, or the feminist agenda, or why is she so anti-marriage, or why does she want to be a boy, or whatever. And to that I say, fuck off. So the Tamora Pierce series sets, there are several of them, much like many high fantasy authors that time, that era. We have the books set in, we have the books set in Tortall, and then we also have the books set in Imolen. The books set in Tortall always have very strong-headed, independent, female main characters, and Tamora Pierce does a pretty good job of writing about those. So we have The Song of the Lioness, which is about Alanna. Alanna is pretty much the first one in all of this. She is the first domino. Now there is a prequel set called the Becca Cooper series, which has 4 books, and the Becca Cooper series starts before Song of the Lioness, but it didn't come out until later. So it doesn't really seem to have anything to do with the other timelines other than like same last name for some of the things. Then we have the Immortals, which is about a person named Diane who has wild magic, and then, or Dane who has wild magic, and she works with Alanna at certain points. Then we have Protector of the Small, which is about Kel, and then we have Tricksters, which is about Allie, or Elaine, who is Alanna's daughter. And my favorite series, and the one I remember the most from the Tortall books, is The Protector of the Small. And that is still my favorite series. I love Kel. Kel is everything that Alanna isn't. And I like everything that Alanna couldn't be. And I love that for her. So my issues with Song of the Lioness is the first couple of books were really, really good. And then all of the stuff, like in another book set, or another book, Alanna gets this like weird white savior complex, and then it just becomes about Alanna's romance and her weird like love triangle situation. And I hated that. I hated it because she was always like, I'm only gonna find a husband in my own time, and I'm not even gonna have kids, and whatever, whatever, whatever. And obviously she had kids because there's that other set of books, but I hated it because it felt like Alanna became this empty-headed character that she wasn't in the beginning of the series. I also found her to be incredibly and frustratingly selfish. Like, everything is about Alanna becoming the best knight in the world, and I found that incredibly frustrating. However, it's still very cool that she was the first female knight. Still very cool. I didn't appreciate that Tamora at some point, spoiler alert, Tamora at some point brings back somebody they already killed off, and that was weird. I hated that. I was like, what's the point of that? I don't like when people bring back their characters like that just because they don't know what else to write. Like, you should have just let the series die down. With all of these books, I think if there's 4 books, there's usually 1 or 2 too many. Tamora Pierce probably should have just left them all as trilogies, and she would have done fine. But unfortunately, they all have, almost all of them have a 4th book, and it just kind of makes the series suck for me. And this was the case for The Song of the Lioness. The Immortal series is about Dane, who can talk to animals and is a shifter, I think. And it was fine. It was fine. Whatever. I didn't find myself that invested. Does it, for some reason, do that weird thing that a lot of my childhood rereads do, where they suddenly want to like take down whoever to save the planet and the animals? Yes. I don't know. Was that like a trend growing up? Is like, you can't trust adults, they're all gonna lie to you. You can't trust the powers that be, the government, whoever, because they're lying to you and will use you, and the planet's dying. Was that like a trend? Also, why is the planet dying one not a trend anymore? Because like the planet's still dying. Why aren't we doing anything? I did find Dane fun though because she was not as selfish as Alana, and I thought that that was an interesting contrast considering I read these in like publication chronological order, and I thought that that was a nice contrast to Alana. After having finished that series, I was like, oh dear God, please give me another woman who is not this girl because I can't with her right now. And The Immortals was good. It felt like every other fantasy with animal magic. So then we have Protector of the Small, which, as I said before, was my favorite then, is my favorite now, and it is about Kel. And Kel, God bless her, she just works really hard and is not as selfish as Alana, and Alana does eventually help her, which Alana does eventually help her, but initially doesn't at all because she like doesn't want anyone to think she's giving her the upper hand. Maybe you're just shitty. Kel's story, I think, was really interesting because she wasn't in the beginning like, oh, I'll never have romance or anything. Like, she wasn't like that, like Alana was, and then flip-flopped. Like, Kel stayed consistently kind of the same character, with obvious character growth, but she still stayed true to her like core values that she had when she was younger and like insisted on, and at no point did she really become super vapid. However, just like with the Song of the Lioness, there didn't need to be 4 books. There really didn't. There didn't. You could have concluded that in 2 books, maybe 3. I just didn't feel like it was necessary for it to be as long as it was, and that's going to be my complaint probably for the rest of these books as well. And Tricksters, about Elena's daughter, hands down the worst. The worst Tamora Pierce books that I read. I found the main character to be mind-numbingly frustrating. I hated her. I wanted nothing to do with her. I almost DNF'd the first book and didn't read the second book. There's only 2 books and there should have been no books. So like all of the rest of these, there's 2 books too many, and that's saying something when there's only 2 of them. She doesn't listen to her mother, she doesn't listen to her father, she doesn't listen to the god that she made a deal with. She just does whatever she wants, and then like mother like daughter like mother, whatever, like mother like daughter, she has this white savior complex thing. And Tamora Pierce introduces this kind of conversation about slavery in there and colonization, and does a very bad job of handling it. It is not handled well at all. It's kind of brought up in some of the other books because this is the same kingdom, whatever. And I know that there were slaves in medieval times. I recognize that. This is your fantasy world. It's your fantasy world, and they don't have to have slaves. They just don't. And the Tricksters series made it kind of feel like Tamora Pierce was trying to say, like, well, sometimes slaves are treated fine, and so it's okay that people own them. No, it's not. No, actually, that's incorrect. I hated it. I hated it. It made me upset, and I understand that Tamora Pierce wrote her books forever ago. But Trickster's Choice was not that old compared to some of these other ones, and so I was just like, what the fuck? What the fuck? I hated it. Then we have the Becca Cooper series. I don't even remember reading them. They were boring. That's all I had. They were just very boring. They're like the diaries of Becca Cooper, and she trains to be a super spy, an international super spy like the Backyardigans, and unlike that song, which has stuck in my head for the rest of eternity, I did not remember a single detail of that book. Admittedly, I read it 2 months ago because I got very ahead of myself, but it wasn't good. It wasn't good because it was boring. It wasn't good like the Trickster's Choice duology. Those books were bad because the characters were bad. They were just bad. Becca Cooper is just like, Tamora Pierce, you should let this kingdom go. We should stop writing about them. It's time. You can retire. You'll be good. I think this happens a lot with authors where they continue to write and continue to write and continue to write in the same universe, and it's boring after a while. It's like, this is the same story recycled, and your characters are recycled, and who are these people, and I don't like this, I hate this, I'm bored. And it's, you know, Anne McCaffrey does the same thing, Terry Brooks does the same thing, where after a while it's just like in the same kingdom. So, with that being said, Tamora Pierce has another set of books in the Immolen Kingdom. Completely different world, completely different magic rules. Feels kind of the same though. And the 2 quartets that I read was the Circle of Magic and the Circle Opens. Now, there are more books, and she is writing more books for them. I will not be reading them though. I do remember reading the Circle of Magic books back when there used to be this online thing where you could trade books with people, and my dad had me signed up for an account. I was maybe 13, and that's when I read the Circle of Magic books, because I could not get enough of, after reading The Protector of the Small, I could not get enough of Tamora Pierce's books. Couldn't stop reading them. And this was no exception. I really liked the Circle of Magic books, and you know, reading them back now, I liked them for what they were. They're not like mind-blowingly in-depth high fantasy books. They are just a bunch of kids who have magic, who do really cool stuff with that magic, and they learn to be a family. It's found family, and each book focuses, in the first quartet, each book focuses on one of the 4 kids specifically, and seeing them grow and interact with one another was really interesting, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. I wouldn't like say it was amazing or mind-blowing. They were all 3-star reads for me, but I can see how me as a kid would have liked them a lot, right? It stood the test of time to me. I don't think, like I said, I don't think it's amazing, mind-blowing, the best book ever, but it stood the test of time. Then The Circle Opens is just a continuation of the Circle of Magic, where the kids are a little bit older and now they're taking on kids that they're going to mentor. This is where things get a little politically more complicated. I really wanted to like it, but it just, again, was not good. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was just, this is fine. This is fine. I feel indifferent about it. And that was a little disappointing because of how much I know I liked them as a kid, but, you know, we grow out of things. And as an adult, I do want a little bit more of a complex plot rather than what the Emmeline series is. I would highly recommend it to younger kids, though. I would recommend it to, you know, 12, 13-year-olds. This one, I actually think should be classed as a middle grade series. I don't know why it's classed as young adult. I would not class it as young adult and would not expect young adults to read it. I think that it would fall more in the middle school, middle grade category. But that's just me. I don't get to make those decisions. Who makes those decisions? Are they the same people who rate like movies? Same people? Just wondering. So yeah, that's my thoughts on my Tamora Pierce reread. You know, some of it was really good, some of it was really bad, obviously, which is a little tricky because it's several series in one set, and it was a ton of books. It was my largest reread, I think, that I had planned at all, which is why it was technically what was going to be my last one, because I was still trying to come up with other ones. My next childhood reread series is going to be the Anna Godbertson books, so that is the, Beautiful Days, Bright Young Things, I think is a duology, and then we have like 3 or 4 books in the Lux series. These are historical romances, which, if you know anything about me, is not a genre. Both of those things are not genres I like, but they are like Gossip Girl vibes, and I read them because they were Gossip Girl vibes. It's like petty drama that doesn't make any sense and is just absolutely ridiculous, and it's always like love-based drama, and like the parents don't approve, and I ran away from my husband in the 1920s to go to Manhattan to be famous. The Bright Young Days series duology, Bright Young Things duology, is set in the 1920s in Manhattan, and then the Lux series is set in the 1840s, and I think also in the United States, but I couldn't tell you where. I don't remember. I remember liking these books a lot. I'm a little bit afraid to read them, though. I know that I've probably talked about it in the TBR for September, where I talk about more about what those books are about, so you can check that out there. But yeah, that's my goal, that's my plan. I'm thinking of changing up the way that I do the childhood rereads stuff next year, but I will talk about that a little bit later when I come to more concrete decisions. But, you know, just heads up that this may be shifting direction and changing a little bit over time. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you didn't, and if there's something that I could do better. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and share. Also, don't forget to drink your water, take your meds, and take care of yourselves. I will see you guys again on Thursday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, and then Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Okay, thanks, bye.